Welcome to the Dougie Wuggy Story Hour. Today's story is Chapter 3 of The Adventures of Joe and Jill, coming to you from the Cole Arts Camp in Oakland, California. Give it up for Cole Arts Camp. If you're interested in coming to the camp, you can check us out at www.coleartscamp.com. And now, on to Chapter 3 of Joe and Jill. If you haven't listened to Chapters 1 and 2, you might want to go back and listen to those first before you listen to this one. All right. Well, Joe and Jill were in their barn one day when there was a knock at the door. They opened the door, and there was the prince and the princess, John and Julia. It was their 16th birthday, and their parents had given them these very cool saddles that had a strap on it so that they could fly up into the sky with Joe and Jill and not fall off. There was like super seatbelts. They said, "You promised." And Joe and Jill said, "Yep, we promised, and we never break a promise." So Julia got on Jill's back, and the prince got on Joe's back, and they fly up into the sky above the clouds, and they see a castle. You know, like Jack and the Beanstalk?
Yeah.
How many of you know that story, Jack and the Beanstalk? You know where Jack goes up into the sky and he meets this really evil giant and stuff? Yeah. Okay. And then the prince is like, "Oh, I used to like that story when I was a kid. This is like Jack and the Beanstalk. Let's go check out the castle. Maybe there's a giant in there with treasure." And then they were like, "Yeah, but what if the giants are bad?" "Oh, well, come on. We're up here. Let's have an adventure." So they started walking towards the castle when all of a sudden they heard two little voices say, "We need help, we need help." It was two elves. They were hiding behind a tree. They looked cold, they looked tired, they looked hungry. And the prince is like, "What are you doing here?" They said, "We just escaped from the giants." "What? There are actually giants in that castle?" "Yes. There are two giant brothers. They're very evil. They've captured all the elves, and they put us down in their basement in a prison, and we have to work for them day and night. We have to cook and clean, and we even have to clean out their stinky toilets." Can you imagine how stinky that is? A giant's toilet? Oh, that's worse than a porta potty.
Ew.
I know, right? And then Jill says, "But how did you get captured? I don't understand." Okay, then one of the elves, whose name was Ernie, he said, "Well, we were in our village." "Oh, you guys have a village up here?" "Yes, we do. We have an elf village. There are a few hundred of us that live there. But one night we were sleeping, and the ground started rumbling, and the two giants who live in that castle came. They scooped us up in a net, and they put us in the prison below their castle, and we've had to work for them." And then they're like, "Okay, so how did you guys, what happened? How come you're not in the jail?" "Oh, we escaped." "Okay," and then the prince is like, "Okay, how did you escape? Tell us the story." And then Lena, who was one of the elves, she said, "Okay, so what happened is one of the elves who works in the castle, he stole a spoon from the giants." "Okay, a spoon? What's so great about a spoon?" "Oh, a giant spoon. You can use it like a shovel." "Oh, did you dig a tunnel?" "Yes, exactly. We dug a tunnel, an escape tunnel. It took us a whole month. Every night when the giants were sleeping, we would dig and dig and dig an escape tunnel underneath the prison. And then finally, the tunnel was complete, and we decided to make our escape." So they were like, "Okay, everybody get ready. Tie your shoes. Everybody, we're out of here. We're going to get out of here. And don't wake up the giants, okay? No screaming or anything. Okay, no screaming." So they say, "Okay, go." And they all go through the tunnel, and they run into the forest. But one little girl who was wasn't a very good listener, she's like, "We're free, we're free, we're free!" And they're like, "That's too loud." And then she's like, "Oops, sorry." But she woke up the giants. And they're like, "They're escaping! Get the nets!" And they get on their big boots and they run down and they scooped up all the elves and they put them back in the jail. Okay, so how come you guys escaped? We're the only two that escaped. We've been hiding here. And then Joe said, "But did the giants find the tunnel?" Yes, they found the tunnel. And you know what they did? They put a big boulder in there to stop it up and block it so we couldn't escape. And we're the only two that are out here. We've been out here for 3 days. 3 days we've been here. You need to help us. You need to help our friends escape, please. And they're like, "Okay, well, we're probably not strong enough to move a giant boulder, but we do have friends." "Yes, who are your friends?" "The fairies, of course." And like, "Oh, you're friends with the fairies?" "Oh, yes. That's how we got these horns and these wings. See, we were just regular horses." And then they told them the whole story. Remember the story about, fighting the bad fairies and stuff? Remember that from chapter 1?
Yeah.
You guys remember that? Yeah. Okay. They said, "Okay, cool. So can you take us to meet the fairies?" Maybe they have an idea. "Okay, hop on our backs." So the two elves hop on Joe and Jill's back, and the prince and princess, they fly down to the fairy village, and they said, "Fairies meet the elves, elves meet the fairies." "Oh, nice to meet you, nice to meet you, nice to meet you, nice to meet you." So what's the problem? The problem is that their whole family and friends are in a jail under the giant's castle, and there's a big boulder in the tunnel, and we were wondering if maybe you fairies have some idea or some magic or something. And you know what one of the fairies said? She said, "We just invented magic shrinking drops." And they're like, "What the heck are magic shrinking drops?" "Okay, you put 3 drops on anything and it will shrink it down. Like, you could put it on a tree and it would shrink down to like the size of this water can right here." Can you believe that? And then Jill's like, "Okay, can you show us?" And they're like, "Yeah, okay, stand back." So they put 3 drops on a tree and it shrinks down to this tiny little tree. And they're like, "Oh, that's very cool. But does it stay small forever?" "No. It only stays small for 1 minute. After 1 minute, it's going to get big again. Stand back. It's going to grow again. And after 1 minute, the tree gets big again. Really huge." They're like, "Oh, okay." And they said, "Okay, we get the idea. If we put 3 drops on the boulder, it'll shrink, and they'll give us time to escape, right?" "Exactly. But you better make sure your friends are not in the tunnel after 1 minute, because it's going to get big again, and if there's still elves in the tunnel, they're going to get squished. They're going to be like elf guts and goo all..." "Oh, okay, stop it. We get the idea." Elf mashed potatoes. Yeah, we got it. Elf mashed potatoes. Okay. Elf gravy. No, stop it. We get the idea. Okay. So they said, "Okay, good luck." And they give them the magic drops. They fly up to the castle. They said, "Okay." They go to the jail. "Hey, look, we have magic shrinking drops. Put 3 drops on the boulder, and then you can all escape." And the elves like, "Cool. Where did you get these?" "From the fairies." "What? You met the fairies? Lucky. Well, if we escape, we can all meet the fairies. Come on. All right, everybody, get ready." And they told that little girl, they said, "Don't scream, we're free this time. You'll wake up the giants." "Okay, I promise I will not scream, we're free, we're free." She says, "I promise." Okay, here we go. Everybody, we have 1 minute to escape. This boulder's going to get big again in 1 minute. You run as fast as you can. You've never run this fast in your life. Got it. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. They put the drops on the boulder. It shrinks down to like the size of a tennis ball. And they're like, "Go, go, 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 go." And they're like, they're running as fast as they can. They're done. And finally, after 1 minute, Of course, what happens? The boulder starts getting big again, right? It gets bigger, 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 bigger. And there are 5 elves left, and they're like, run, run, run. And the last elf finally just dives out just before it gets squished. And that little girl said, you made it! You made it, yo boy. Uh-oh. And they're like, really? She said, sorry, guys. She had woken up the giants again. And they're like, they're escaping again. Get the net. And they put on their big boots, and they get their big net, and they come down, and they scoop up all the elves again. I know. And they're wearing these big jackets with zippers, and they stick the elves in their big giant jacket that's all got like old moldy sandwiches and mayonnaise. And, oh, it's disgusting in here. Oh, God. Okay. And it's dark and sneaky in these pockets. But guess what? You know what the princess says? Hey, we've got some of the magic drops. Let's use them on the giants. Right, use them on the giants. So they fly over the heads of the giants and they say, hey, you big dummies up here. And the giants are like, huh? And when they go, huh? They pour the magic drops in their mouth and they shrink down to the size of this water cup here. They're like the tiniest giants in the world. And they're like, oh no, we're shrinking. Oh no. And of course, their big jacket falls off. The prince and princess hop off Joe and Jill. They unzip the jackets. The little elves escape. They're like, what's that white stuff on your face? It's mayonnaise. Don't ask. Oh, it's disgusting. They said, hurry before they get big again. They get in Joe and Jill's saddle, and they start to fly away. But guess what happens after 1 minute? Do you know what happens to the giants? What happens to the giants? The giants get big again. And they're like, oh gosh, they're getting big again. And you know what the giants do? They each pick up a big rock and they throw it at Joe and Jill to try and knock them out. And they're really good throwers too. They throw it, but guess what the Joe and Jill do? They said, use your horn like a baseball bat. And when the rock comes, they hit the rock like a baseball, and it comes back and hits the giants in the head. Door! Knocks them out. They're like, whoa, nappy time. They get knocked out, and Joe and Jill and the prince and princess and the elves, they fly down back to the fairy forest. And then the little girl said, we're free. And all the other elves are like, yeah, we can scream it now. We're free. And they're like, fairies meet the elves. Elves meet the fairies. Oh, nice to meet you. And then the prince says, so where are you guys going to live now? Because if you go back up to the clouds, the giants are going to be waiting for you. And they're just going to capture you again. And then the fairies say, well, if you want to live here, we have all this space. You can build your own little village. And they're like, cool. So the elves build an elf village next to the fairy village, and they become neighbors. And every Sunday, they have like a little party. And guess who comes to the party?
Princess Jill.
Prince and Princess, Joe and Jill, and even the King and Queen came one time. And remember Charlie, their owner? He came one time too. It was like a big party for everybody. And now, there is a chapter 4, which I will tell you, maybe not to this group, but I will tell it to the next group. And this one, Joe and Jill have to defeat an evil monster called a Cyclops. You know what a Cyclops is?
Yeah, of course I do.
It's like a big, giant dude with one eyeball who's really mean and fierce, and they have to defeat him. Well, that's all for the Dougie Wuggy Story Hour today. Give it up for the Dougie. All right. See you next time. Over and out.